I was asked to comment today on the possibility of former New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian having a tilt at federal politics. It was on Perth's 6PR radio station. And as part of the discussion, up popped former council assisting ICAC, barrister Geoffrey Watson. And didn't he give it to the former Premier and the Prime Minister?
In the meanwhile, the Premier of New South Wales, knowing what was coming, she resigned. Now, she obviously saw how serious it was and made a decision based upon that and what she knew. Why would you even contemplate going back into Parliament when this investigation remains open? It's serious. This shouldn't happen.
It is a very interesting version of events. Sorry, but we went through an absolute circus in Gladys's ICAC hearings, toppling a Premier in the middle of a pandemic, and they came back with no smoking gun at all. Yes, a conflict of interest, dealing with funding for a seat in which her boyfriend held, but a million miles away from a corrupt piece of evidence. Now, I partly agree with the Prime Minister here too. The show trials are a farce and the format in New South Wales needs revamping. When former ICAC prosecutors are hitting the airwaves, you know that the Commission is feeling the heat. As for Gladys, the momentum builds each and every day. Even Tony Abbott is now pushing her barrow, and he did so today in the Herald. He said Gladys did a fine job as Premier and was by far the best of them at resisting virus panic and calls for lockdown. We certainly need more people in Canberra with an instinct for freedom and a feel for small business, and it would be good to keep Gladys in our public life. Joining me to discuss this now is Liberal MP for the neighbouring seat of Mackellar, Jason Falinski. If the former Premier is undeserving of a seat in the New South Wales Parliament, why does she deserve a seat in the federal Parliament?
Well, who says she's undeserving of a seat in the state parliament? And ultimately, Chris, I get...
Geoffrey Watson.
I think your comments are interesting, and I mean, I don't want to reflect on Geoffrey himself, but what I would say is there are a number of reports by Inspector Generals of the Independent Commission Against Corruption. There are a number of judgments by Supreme Courts and High Courts in this country about decisions that have been made and investigations that have been undertaken by the New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption. And they're not pretty reading, to be blunt. And in the basement of the Independent Commission Against Corruption are 16 packets of documents that go to why it was that Mike Baird felt it necessary to pass a piece of retrospective legislation making unlawful acts lawful. And the Independent Commission Against Corruption, that apparently is all about transparency, apparently all about openness in government and proper governance, refuses to hand over those documents to the New South Wales Parliament. It is, quite frankly, an extraordinary state of affairs. And I'm not entirely sure that people at the Independent Commission Against Corruption should be standing, some sort of virtue test as to who gets to allow the people of Australia to decide who they want to represent them in Canberra. And that's ultimately the people who will make that decision, the people of Warringah, not the people of Phillip Street and the barristers in New South Wales.
True, but think of the strategy. It is a big gamble to commit to run in Warringah before the ICAC Commissioner hands down her report on her case, isn't it?
So this election isn't about personalities, it's about policies and ideas. Who has the best ideas to create jobs for the working men and women of this country? Who has the best ideas to ensure that people who've been working hard all their lives will have financial security in retirement? Who has the best ideas when it comes to national security and keeping our people safe and secure? And frankly, Chris, who has the best ideas on how to get to net zero most efficiently and the fastest? Now, on that basis, you've got to say that Gladys Berejiklian comes to the election with a lot of good ideas. So that is going to be an attractive candidate for the people of whichever electorate she decides to stand in, or indeed if she decides to stand.
Apart from the fact, of course, the coalition so needs additional seats to the ones they hold already, and this would be to get back Warringah would be a great return to that part of the Northern Beaches. Absolutely,
Chris. But above and beyond all of that, what Australia needs is a parliament that is stable, that provides whichever party is in government, a stability to actually get on with the program to deliver for Australia, because the next decade or two are going to be critical decades. I don't need to tell you the strategic fluidity in our current region. I don't need to tell you both the challenges and opportunities that we have in the economy, whether it is reducing our carbon emissions to zero or seizing the job opportunities for the future. And I don't need to tell you that we have a major problem when it comes to providing affordable housing for young Australians. These are the issues that matter, and we need to have a parliament that can, whichever party is in government, can deliver the stability that that party needs to implement its program and to make Australia an even better place in which to live.
One last question, different subject. Can you shed some light on this Voices of movement, which sounds awfully like the Greens in camouflage? You're the latest candidate to come up against a challenge from this climate-obsessed independent in Sophie Scamps. Just how independent are they, though?
Well, look, you've obviously got people like Simon Holmes à Court running around saying that he's a Menzian liberal. But, when it comes to national security, Simon and his mates are quite silent. We don't know. Simon keeps saying, I'm going to release all the names of all the people that are giving me millions of dollars that I'm giving to these independent candidates. They're also independent, Chris, that they all say the same thing. They all use the same database. They all use the same technology platform for their websites. They all use the same sort of colours and the same sort of material to get their campaigns out there. I mean, it's a very well coordinated independent network. I mean, it's looking more like franchises than independents, to be honest with you. And I've also got to say to you that, yes, they have. They obviously have ambitions on climate policy. Many of them I share, but they don't have a lot to say when it comes to economic security and safety. They don't have a lot to say to people who want to live well and financially secure in retirement. And I've yet to hear them say anything to young Australians who want to have an affordable house in which they can raise their family and own their bit of Australia and play their part in the Australian dream. And so it seems to me that, yes, that they seem to be a conclusion in search of reasons, rather than actually a principle-based movement that's looking to make Australia a better place.
Oh, it so feels like an election campaign already. It's exciting. Jason Falinski.
Bring it on, Chris. Bring it on.
Bring it on. Bring on the biff. Thank you so much for your time.